Imagine standing alone in the middle of a dense forest. The sun went down minutes ago, and the deceptive, grayish blue light of dusk is fading rapidly. The silhouettes of the trees slowly blend into one another. You do nothing. You just stand and listen. At first, you are still calm. Your civilized brain, accustomed to concrete buildings, smartphones, and artificial lights, tells you there is nothing to fear. Logically, you know that the nearest highway is perhaps only a few miles away. You know there are no man-eating beasts in your vicinity. Rationally, you are in perfect safety. But then, the minutes tick by. The darkness grows thicker, as if some liquid, black substance is seeping from the ground, enveloping the roots, the trunks, and then the canopy. And that is when something changes, not in your environment, but inside you. Your stomach tightens, the hair on the back of your neck slowly, almost imperceptibly, stands on end. Your breathing involuntarily quickens, becoming shallower, as if your body is instinctively trying to silence its own voice. Your heart beats louder and louder, almost echoing in your ears. Your rational brain tries to regain control. You mantra to yourself that everything is fine, but your body no longer listens. A much older, much darker program has initiated in your cells, an ancient, atavistic code that overrides common sense. Suddenly, a branch snaps behind you. You don't turn around immediately, you freeze. In that split second, the modern human who files tax returns, sits in cafes, and ponders the future ceases to exist. Its place is taken by something else, a prey. Why does this happen? Why do we dread the forest in the dark when we know that nothing is threatening us? For the answer, we must search not in the present, but in the deepest, forgotten past of humanity. For millennia, the forest was not a peaceful hiking spot. It was not a place for recreation. The forest was the wilderness, the realm of uncontrollable chaos. For more than 99% of human history, darkness was synonymous with vulnerability. Our eyes are laughably weak in the dark. We cannot see heat. There are no reflective layers behind our retinas. Our sense of smell is dull. Our hearing is limited. In contrast, the creatures that hunted us for hundreds of thousands of years adapted perfectly to the night. When the sun went down, the balance of power shifted brutally and instantly. Evolutionarily speaking, your brain is a survival machine polished to perfection by paranoia. Biologists call this the hyperactive agency detection device. This is a very complex term for a very simple phenomenon. Imagine your ancestor 100,000 years ago, walking through the darkening wilderness. Suddenly, a bush rustles. They have two options. The first is to remain rational and think, it's just the wind. The second is to panic irrationally and think, it's a saber-toothed tiger watching me. If your ancestor believed it was a tiger, but it was just the wind, they got scared, ran away, but survived. This is a false positive. But if they believed it was just the wind and it was actually a tiger, they died. They did not pass on their genes. They had no offspring. The humans who were rational, calm, and optimistic in the dark forest all died. You and I, we are all the direct descendants of the terrified, the overthinkers, the ones who suspected monsters in the dark. Your brain creates fear out of nothing because throughout evolution, paranoia was more profitable than calmness, but the mechanism of fear is even more complex and far more chilling. You stand in the dark, staring into the shadows, because of a psychological phenomenon called the Ganzfeld effect. When your brain does not receive enough visual stimuli, such as in a pitch-black forest, it does not simply shut down, it does not accept the void. Our brains are so terrified of information deprivation that they begin to fill in the gaps themselves. Through a neurological trick called pareidolia, you begin to see faces and figures where there are none. The twisting of the tree trunks suddenly becomes a hunched figure. The leaves of the bushes shape into eyes watching you. Your mind projects its own darkest fears onto the pitch-black canvas. You create the monsters you dread, and then you believe they are real. And all of this has perhaps nowhere etched itself deeper into the collective human psyche than in the ancient, misty landscapes of Eastern Europe, such as the Carpathian Basin, framed by jagged mountain ridges and filled with ancient oak and pine. This vast basin was a melting pot for countless cultures over millennia. Whether they were Slavic farmers, Romanian shepherds, Germanic settlers, or nomadic tribes from the east, the deep, impenetrable woods meant the exact same thing to all of them, the boundary of the known world. For our ancestors, The edge of the forest marked the end of civilization and the last outpost of safety. What began beyond the village perimeter was a realm of unpredictability and inhuman forces. Think of the old European folklore that eventually crossed the ocean to shape our modern horror stories. The hero almost always has to enter the deep dark woods. That is where the ancient spirits live, where the phantoms haunt, where death or profound transformation awaits. These stories were not mere bedtime tales. They were psychological maps of a world where stepping among the dark trees meant accepting that you were no longer the apex predator. In those vast wildernesses, wolves, bears, and outlaws hid for centuries. The dense canopy shut out the moonlight, and the thick moss absorbed the sound of approaching footsteps. When a medieval traveler was stranded in these ancient forests for the night, their terror was not irrational. It was bleed your heart out real. And though we have largely cleared the old growth forest and pushed the wilderness back, the memory of those ancient, impenetrable woodlands still pulses in our blood. Today, whether you are hiking in the deep woods of the Appalachians or a quiet local reserve, when you enter the forest at night, your brain does not see a 21st century mapped out trail. Your brain returns to that primeval wilderness of old. But there is something even more terrifying than the darkness and the shadows. Something that is the pinnacle of psychological terror in nature.